Hello there, everybody. Greetings and welcome to another episode of On Deck. Today's a solo episode. You got just me, Mr. Christopher Herman here on the microphone. And before I begin, I just want to say thank you all for taking some time out of your day to check out these episodes, whether they're the solo ones with me or with the guests. I hope that you're enjoying them. I hope it's giving you a sense of who we are as a company and what we and or I stand for and believe. And that's what we're going to continue to try to communicate through these conversations. And as always, I want to say, please take a moment if you could, like and subscribe to our channel, our YouTube channel at the Herman Agency. Ring the bell so that you can get some notifications when the new content goes live. And like and or comment on these videos. It's helpful to us. It's appreciative to us, or we appreciate it. And it just it helps give us an indication as to whether or not some of this content is making a difference in any of your lives. So again, thank you. Appreciate your time. And here we go. Another episode of On Deck here solo with me. And today's a topic. Yeah, I think I'm gonna get I could get myself in a little bit of trouble on this one. But I've sat by watching this scenario and I feel compelled to communicate. So today's topic is the one and only Mr. Dave Chappelle. Yes, we're going to talk about Dave Chappelle today. I'm pretty sure that all of you know Dave Chappelle, in my opinion, probably one of the greatest comedians of all time, one of the greatest social commentators of all time. I would say that he's my favorite comedian, and I have enjoyed his work for years and years and years. And I find him to be not only funny, but insightful, intelligent, and wise. Now, I don't always agree with everything that he says. I don't find every joke he tells funny, but for the most part I do. And I want to talk about him today because I'm sure many of you know, in the last month or so, Dave has found himself in another round of controversy, right? So Dave put out his final Netflix special called, I believe it's called The Closer. And during The Closer, Dave does dedicate a significant amount of time to addressing, telling stories about, and joking about the trans community. And there has been a significant, which I think is to be expected, a significant amount of backlash from not only the trans community, but from the media empires, if you will, as a whole, have really come out to condemn Dave for his jokes and his continued jokes about the trans community. Now, before I even go any further, I want to say this. I believe in respect, love, and understanding of all people. Doesn't matter race, culture, creed, sexual orientation. We all are here, I believe, to learn from each other, to listen to one another, and to love one another. And sometimes we do a better job of that than others. So this is not a statement of belief one way or the other. This is more just my observation of what has happened since Dave put out that special. I watched the special. I watched the entire special. And what I saw was a man who was still trying to appropriately address the ongoing, let's call it rift between himself and this particular community. I felt he did so with dignity. I thought he did so with a humanity, and I thought he also did so with a sense of honesty about how he feels. And not to get into the specifics, what the jokes were, what they weren't, but naturally, as soon as the special came out, immediately, all over Twitter, all over the news, everybody's just hammering Dave Chappelle as being transphobic and a bigot and all of this type of negative rhetoric. And, I jumped in. I didn't jump in from a commentary perspective. I jumped in just looking at it. I was curious to see what people were saying. And it was really remarkable to see how many tweets and other levels of commentary there were by people who clearly did not watch the whole special, saying things like, if Dave had made these type of jokes about any other group, they would be up in arms, or Dave doesn't understand or doesn't like trans people. These people clearly did not watch the episode or watch the special, because, he rips on everybody. And always has. He has always told jokes and had great comedy at the expense of any number of groups, including African Americans, including himself, right? That's what comedians do. They make jokes. And they make jokes about all kinds of things. And, it used to be funny. Now everybody really gets upset because for whatever reason, we're going through a period of time in history where sensitivities are at an all-time high, patience and understanding is at an all-time low, and nobody wants to take the time to step back and just appreciate that we all have different opinions, and that we live in a country that was founded on the principles of freedom and liberty, and freedom of speech, and the ability for us to have an open forum to be able to communicate our ideas, which is what Dave does during any one of his specials. And it's what he did during this special. And what I found really interesting is that nobody took any note to the long section in the special where Dave shared a very heartfelt and personal story with a friend of his who was trans, who he invited to be an opener in one of his acts in San Francisco, who he befriended and grew close with, and who this person later defended Dave because everybody came out against Dave. And this trans person stood up and defended Dave for being an honest and good person, a caring person, and not transphobic in any way, shape, or form. But this person, this comedian, this trans comedian received such a harsh backlash that ultimately, and not because of this person obviously had some other problems or issues as well too, but this person ultimately killed himself. And this was a significant portion of the special. And nowhere in mainstream media did you hear anybody talk about that. All it was focused in on an agenda or a narrative that Dave is transphobic. And I don't believe that he is. I believe that Dave cares very much about all people. I believe he cares very much about the African American experience, and he's spoken very eloquently about that. And he's also spoken comedically about that. He's cracked some freaking great jokes. The guy's hysterical. He's a genius comedian. And he's taking the backlash right now. So the reason that I'm bringing this up right now is, of course, because just yesterday, another clip of one of his more recent performances came out, because everybody's calling for him to be canceled. Everybody's saying, he's a terrible person. And, apparently they're saying that the trans employees at Netflix, wanted to have a meeting with him and he refused. And he said, that's not true. But what he has said is, listen, I said what I said, and I stand behind what I said, and I'm not going to get down on my knees and apologize to this community. I'm not going to be summoned, okay? I believe in what I said. I know how I feel inside, and I am not going to cave to this ridiculous pressure that is being applied to him right now, insinuating that he's a transphobic person, which he clearly says, and I believe he's not. And that's really the thing that I'm driving home at right now. And I posted about it on social media this morning. And listen, I have a lot of my opinions and feelings. I usually don't jump into this, but this one I feel compelled to jump in here. This cancel culture and this woke ideology it is not heading anywhere good. this whole thought process that if somebody stands up and says something that we don't like or that is offensive to us, that person has to, that their livelihood has to be destroyed. They need to be removed from their job for saying something that they believe. And there's a fine line. If somebody is truly offensive and hurtful or inciting violence or something, that's a different thing. That's not where Dave Chappelle is, and that's not what he was saying, in my opinion. And of course, everybody came out with him with the pitchforks. He's got a documentary that he put together that initially got invited to all kinds of film festivals, and now nobody will touch him. They're all, they don't want to touch him because, he is, he's an outcast at this point in time in certain communities. And I just think, this is not right. We, as citizens of the United States, we as citizens of the world, are not meant to agree and see eye to eye on everything. It's never going to happen. It is never going to happen. We all see the world through a different lens, and we see the world through the lens of our experience. And it is our personal experience that shapes how we view the world and how we interact with the world. And I think that we all know the more we become exposed to different ideas, different people, different cultures, different ways of life, and different thought processes, the more we're exposed to that, and the more that we remain open-minded with an open heart to allow these new ideas or new perspectives to come into us, the more that we grow and the more understanding we become as human beings. At no time, I believe in history, did people grow as a result of canceling people by saying, you can't say that. That's not okay. That's offensive to us. That's offensive to us. That doesn't help people grow. That keeps people stagnant, actually, by resisting new ideas or different ideas or sometimes painful ideas. I can remember hundreds of times in my life that somebody said to me something that was painful to me, that I didn't like. Almost I might have found it offensive, right? But then I gave it a little time to sink in. Sometimes those critical words, sometimes those hurtful words, sometimes they reveal a truth about yourself that leads you to grow, that makes you a better person. I can think of a number of things that my wife has said to me that at first I was like, oh man, that was hurtful. Or I don't agree with that, or I find that insulting, or whatever. But after time, I realized that many of those situations helped me grow. We're not all going to see eye to eye in this world. What we do have to do is have a respect and understanding and appreciation for each other. But we're not going to move forward as a people, as a country, as a world, if we are following this ideology right now, which is we don't like what you say, therefore you don't exist anymore. It's not going to lead anywhere good. And what people don't realize is that those right now who are doing the canceling, if you want to call it that, sometime somebody's going to sneak up behind them and not like what they have to say, and then they're going to get canceled, right? There's no end to this. Nobody stands on the permanent high ground of moral superiority and does not have somebody else looking at them thinking, I don't like what that person's doing. Okay? Any one of us could do that to any one of each other at this point in time. And so I'm talking about this today because we have seen so many people apologizing endlessly for things that they shouldn't have to apologize for. A tweet they wrote 10 years ago, something they thought when they were in high school. I mean, people grow, learn, and develop. I think we can all look back on our lives and say, man, I did some dumb shit when I was younger, or I thought some fucked up shit when I was younger, but I grew and I learned and I developed. Could you imagine if your career was ended because of something you thought as a teenager? That's where we're at right now. It's insanity, right? It's insanity. So I think Dave did the right thing. He stood up and said, listen, man, I said what I said. I'm happy to talk to anybody about this issue. I'm happy to talk to the trans community, but I'm not going to be summoned. You're not calling me away. You can come to me, but you have to watch the whole special, because if you watch the whole special, I think that you'll have an understanding and appreciation for who he is and what he really believes. I think it's the right thing, okay? People need to stop being afraid to speak their minds right now. We're living in that world. How many of you have sat down with your friends, family members, and thought, man, I think these things that I think are perfectly normal, perfectly reasonable, yet you're afraid to say them out loud, right? Because YouTube's listening or watching, Facebook's listening or watching. Is this the country that we want? Is this what we, is this what we fought for our families? Is this what we work so hard for in our jobs every day to create a life for our families, so that we live in fear and we can't even stand up and just say what we believe? As long as you're being reasonable and decent and honest, you're entitled to your opinion and you're entitled to communicate it. And if somebody disagrees with it, that's okay too. But we can respectfully disagree. We can respectfully have conversation and dialogue about things to try and come to an understanding. But right now we're battling, and it seems like the quickest way to end the battle is to just throw people away, and it's not okay. So Dave Chappelle, I salute you. Thank you for standing up for what you believe in, holding your ground, and setting an example for the rest of us who feel that we should have the opportunity, all of us, to say what we need and want to say. And it doesn't mean we're going to agree all the time, but we should have the opportunity to say it, because that is one of the founding principles of what this country was founded on. So there, I said it. I said it. Thank you, Dave Chappelle. Thank you to everybody that took the time to watch and or listen to these words today. I say them with the utmost of respect and love for humans, human beings, and humanity. So thank you very much, and have a great day.